Well, welcome everybody to the fourth installment of our little topic on the stigma of addiction. Now, we've covered Hollywood movies, just the popular view, and statistical research. There's another kind of research. This kind of research is called qualitative, and what it does is it wants to know what's going on inside the individual. What is subjectively, what is their experience of, in this case, addiction or recovery, right? So the research, basically what you do with it is you can sit down with someone, just have a long chat with them, and then you analyze this transcript of this session in various ways. But the idea is to understand how the person is making sense of it. And one of the most fascinating things that I've discovered reading a lot of this stuff, this kind of research, is that, again, I mean, it's amazing, but we find this defectiveness again in the addict. So one example is a Scheinberg and Smith article where they talk to a single woman, and she's describing to them about her problems with drug addiction and what she believes she's going to have to do to overcome it. And it's fascinating because she talks about, oh, you know, when I was getting drunk, there was this person and I didn't like this person, right? They were, you know, because normally I'm shy and reserved, and this person, oh boy, they just let loose, right? And oh yeah, it was terrible, and it's so embarrassing the next morning. And this is what the research portrayed, that, oh yes, that when you get drunk, the identity that you take on is very uncomfortable, it's not the real person, anything like that. Now, it's interesting because this one article actually includes some really quite fascinating things. For example, it actually gives a quote from the woman, and she says that when she's drunk, she actually feels more creative. And in fact, when she's drinking, it's kind of fun and exciting. But the researchers didn't really pay a lot of attention to that stuff. They were back to this old story of, oh, addiction's horrible, it's bad, addicts don't like it, etc., etc. Like, it was really quite fascinating. Now, if I were the counselor and I heard that, holy mackerel, I think that would really pique my interest, because one of the things that fascinates me is I'm trying to figure out why it is that if all of these people who use drugs, they come into treatment, come into research and tell the people how horrible drug use is, well, why did they keep using them, right? Like, how do you make sense of that? And the most simplistic way or simple way to make sense of this is through the disease model, right? So you take a drug and now you're out of control. But a lot of the clients at Sunshine Coast Health Center, they don't even believe that, right? And so how do they make sense of it? And one of the ways that I'm always fascinated is, what is the benefit of getting loaded, right? What is the payoff? What's the reward? And when you ask those kinds of questions, you get a much different idea, a much different understanding of what's going on with the addiction and also for recovery. Unfortunately, very few people ask those kinds of questions. So even in this other kind of research, which the entire point of the exercise is to understand where the person who's using drug is coming from. So it's not like I'm going to invent an idea and try to test whether it's right or wrong. This kind of research actually asks the individual, well, why did you use drugs and what was it like? But even this research keeps coming up with this idea that somehow addicts are defective, they're totally out of control, all that. Like, it's really quite remarkable, all these things. Okay, so that's this installment, and we'll be back next week, and we'll talk about the danger of or the difficulty that you might have if you internalize the stigma of addiction.